Amanda said, I head up a digital marketing shop. I have been in business for a little over 10 years. I started out very specifically on social media, and I launched the social media efforts, I guess, for BB&T Bank a whole long time ago. But I found I really, really like working with small businesses a lot more. And so social media is still part of what we do, but like Amanda said, is we kind of work on an overall digital presence, which is everything from your Yelp reviews to your websites to how you send email out. If you do YouTube or videos or any of that, a lot of that is in your control. Some of it is not, because it's amazing. If you Googled yourself or your company name, if you have one, you might be surprised about what comes up and what other people mention. And sometimes there are profiles that get created, especially if you have a brick and mortar place, maybe somebody checks into your business on Facebook and creates a page for you that way. So sometimes it's just a good idea to keep up with what's out there. And Amanda asked me to talk a little bit today about how to kind of make your way in the midst of this COVID craziness. And I'm not going to lie, it is tough out there. A lot of people that have businesses have had to pivot quite a bit, but there are people that are being successful. And especially some of the things, I know I think Michael and I have talked before about his app. Technology and the tech sector is huge right now. Somebody talked about construction. There is so much remodeling going on as people are spending more and more time in their house, and they're figuring out, hey, it would really help me to have an extra office, or maybe I've been meaning to redo the kitchen forever. A lot of outdoor work, a lot of indoor work, and so construction is doing really good. I heard a story the other day about how somebody that was a dog walker was struggling because people are home and they're not paying for somebody to walk their dogs. So she pivoted and is now doing grocery delivery, somewhat kind of like her own Instacart. And all of these home delivery type businesses are booming right now, whether it's Amazon or the groceries or what have you. There's lots of opportunities. So some of the things, especially as you're thinking about starting something, one of the things is to think about what is successful. I also know a lot of therapists that are doing really well because they're taking virtual appointments, and people are really struggling with loneliness, with depression. Couples that maybe had a few rifts before that are trapped together now, they're really having some problems there, or people are struggling with their kids. And so having that opportunity to talk to somebody or do that type of thing is really a good thing right now. From an education standpoint, I know a lot of people that have started offering virtual training classes. This gets a little bit interesting because the fact that we've got a whole lot of people laid off these days mean that people are kind of rethinking their careers because maybe they can't get a job. So they're looking to either improve on skills that they can use when the economy opens up, or they're trying to figure out, can they shift? You can't become a therapist overnight, but there are life coaches or different people like that. Greg was talking about kind of coaching some people for entrepreneurship. And so if there are skills that you have and that you can kind of leverage that, those are the kind of the industries that I've seen that are most successful. But for a lot of other people, especially service providers, this is the time to start laying the groundwork, if you will, for future work. Unfortunately, sometimes it's tough. Like I will tell you personally, I've had a lot of consultations, and I probably have 24 proposals out there, and they trickle in. Sometimes it's 6 weeks later that somebody says, okay, I'm ready. But right now people are really struggling to plan for their business because they don't know how long it's going to last and how long they need to make cash flow. So the project I will tell you that I've been working on the most that people are interested is something called search engine optimization, which is being found on Google. I'm seeing some heads nod.
Can you say that again?
Sure, it's called search engine optimization.
Okay.
Sometimes you'll see it abbreviated as SEO. And the nutshell is that it's being found on Google. Technically, it works for Bing and Yahoo and whatever search engine, but Google has more than 90% of the market share. So most of the time, we just say Google. And this is a long-term strategy. And it involves everything from the type of content you have on your website to things like they're looking to see, do you have a location? Do you have a privacy policy? Do you have a phone number? These are kind of credibility markers that people, both users and Google, is looking for to see that you're a real business, that you're not kind of a fly-by-night type of thing. And so one of the reasons that being found on Google is so important right now is because you might hear social media, social media, social media. The fact is, yes, social media usage is up, but people are also exhausted by everything that's coming through on social media and they're thrown. And so engagement is way down. And so social media can be a good way to build relationships and share information that you're if you find your right spot. But people are finding much more effectiveness on email marketing or trying to drive people to your website. So the thing about being found on Google is if they're not exhausted by everything that's coming at you and they're actively looking for your business, your product, whatever it is that you do, that's what we call a qualified lead, meaning that they are, they know they need you and they're ready to go find you. And it's important to show up there. So SEO has been the biggest project. I do have a lot of people that are trying to enhance their websites a little bit. That can take all kinds of things. Maybe it's that they finally have time to kind of re-look at their website that they haven't, we've all seen those websites that look like they're from the 90s and it just seems outdated and old. And so sometimes people now, because their business is down, they have time to refresh. And I'll tell you one of the things that's really important because the studies show that between 75 and 95% of people judge an entire business's credibility on the look of their website. And guess what? They do it within a half of a second. And so some of those websites that are old or outdated, or maybe they're not visual, those kind of that doesn't do very well in a customer's impression because they think if your website's outdated, your company's outdated. And so it's really important to kind of stay with the trends, give something that makes a really quick positive impression. And more than anything, that's what we call a hero photo. That's that top image that you have on your website. So I know there's a lot of planning going on right now, so I don't necessarily want to dig too much into kind of the ins and outs of websites and being found. I will tell you, people are connecting really well in virtual environments like this. I've seen some things flashing across the chat when Michael said, I'm looking for beta testers, and a couple of people popped in. The relationship building, I'm hearing from people that it's more effective than the traditional networking that you go to, because maybe you see somebody from across the room, but you can't get to them, or you can't come up right at that moment and say, hey, I can help with what you need. But taking advantage of these type of chat platforms or connecting or why the chat's going on, and then you go over to LinkedIn and connect on them that way. A lot of the laying the groundwork and relationship building is really effective right now. It's interesting because Facebook has so if you are a brand on Facebook, meaning you have a company page, you are in what we call a pay-to-play environment, meaning you are going to have to pay for ads to get anywhere in the newsfeed to be shown to people. And this is where it goes back to these relationships and connecting. If you put something out to you on your personal page and to your existing connections, it makes a difference. I have a friend who is in Denver who has a roofing company, and there was some big hailstorm and it caused a lot of damage on a lot of roofs, and he put it out to his friends that said, hey, if anybody has problems with their roof or there's damage or you need help, please let me know. And he got a ton of business that way. And it seems almost counterintuitive, and it's not something you can hit up your friends all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you're actually, when you have a need or you have something that can truly help and build rather than, and that's where a lot of people forget these days about social media is it's meant to be social, right? It's meant to be a conversation, not a push, push, push. And
Exactly.
so those type of conversations, and especially if you are hiring, oh absolutely, there's a ton of, and because even if your friends don't need a job, they probably know somebody that does, or somebody, these down the line.
Wow.
So social media, that makes a difference. And so I will tell you, I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook. That's not my best network because I'm talking to other businesses. Now, if you think about how you use Facebook, most of the time you're going on there, maybe you pull out your phone when you're standing in line or you're waiting for something. Maybe you've got it up while you're on the TV. Chances are you've got half of a brain on it and you're skimming and you're looking for images. You're looking to be entertained for a couple minutes. You're not there to do business. And so because I talk to other businesses, I'm not selling directly to a consumer. I can't say, hey, here's a funny t-shirt you should buy right now. You're doing that, Facebook's awesome for it, right? But so for me, because I want to talk to other businesses, so I want somebody to be in a business mentality. So I spend my time on LinkedIn. It is interesting because when I was doing some research myself last week and I looked at some big Facebook players and they're still posting regularly and they're still doing that, but engagement is way down. We know, and these are not like, these are, if you might have heard of the name Marie Forleo, she's kind of a lifestyle, she has Marie TV type of thing. She's not really even peddling business. She is more almost an inspirational lifestyle type coach. And she has, I don't know, 700,000 followers. And if I look back at her posts from January, she's getting 700 to 1,000 likes on any given post. These days she's getting 20 to 150. And so engagement is way down. I think especially visual, the trend as a whole has been visual, but let's say like Pinterest is not necessarily something that you might think of as a real social chatty type place. But if you are doing construction, if you're doing interior design, landscape, anything that's visual, this is how a lot of people use Pinterest is they go in and they do what's they're called their inspiration boards, and they're researching and they're looking at the other things that they like. So if you can show your portfolio of sorts or pictures about what you're doing based on kind of the industries that are booming or things that are happening, that's really effective. I will also say on things we don't necessarily usually think of as social media, platforms like Nextdoor, which is the community-based, things talking about your neighborhood, that has been booming. There's a lot more of conversations going there, but again, you have to have conversations, not just push information about your business out.
One thing we found with Facebook is that over the last 15 years, Facebook has been a place where I ended up making contact with wounded veterans and their caregivers, and they stayed on there. And I probably got 600 wounded veterans I stay in touch with, and some I only hear from once every 2 years. But they're there working in the background.
And I've also been seeing a lot more, to say almost the most effective aspect of Facebook these days are the groups. And I think this group has a Facebook group, and that's that conversations. And it's nice because a lot of people lurk, meaning they don't necessarily post or have questions, but they're watching what's going on and they're listening to the conversation and they're seeing what's happening. And that's where the groups are really a good idea for exchanging and meeting people. Should you set up a business page or keep it as your personal page for Nextdoor? I would do both, quite honestly. Some of the nice things about having a business page is it's there, you look professional, you can control it. Maybe you even place ads with it. But if you want something a little bit more personal, you can post as yourself, as a personal thing, that it might say, hey, I'm starting a new coaching business or something. Does anybody have any needs, any questions, especially when you're starting? If you're willing to do some things for free, to get people going, to kind of get your case studies and your names out, that would be a really good place to post it as a personal way. I was looking at what was popping up in the chat and trying to respond to that, but Greg said having a business page on Nextdoor lets people tag and recommend you, which is absolutely a good bonus, and it's a good thing. That's the same type thing for LinkedIn, for Facebook, or even if you don't want to necessarily post regularly, having that kind of professional business page that people can say, yes, I'm coming, I'm verifying you are a real person, company, you're official, that does a lot. So I would definitely do the personal and the business page for Nextdoor.
I had a quick question.
Fire away.
So you mentioned like monitoring the different social media platforms and seeing which ones are the most engaged. Is there a way that you could actually check the actual numbers on those social media pages besides just looking at like likes or subscribers or things like that? Do you know of any like official platforms that monitor that? Like, okay, Facebook is, has this many users and like this percentage is engaged. Meanwhile, Instagram or YouTube has this percentage.
They put out monthly stats to that, but I don't. You can certainly. One of the tools I like is called Buffer, and this is it does a couple of things for you in the way that you can pre-schedule posts, or you can put posts out to multiple networks at one time. There's a couple others. You might have heard of Hootsuite that does the same thing. What I like about Buffer is that it shows you how many people are clicking on your post, because Amanda mentioned the videos that I do, and they're on YouTube, but they are viewed on LinkedIn more than anything else. But if it's interesting, because if you were to go on my LinkedIn profile and say, okay, there's all these videos, but nobody's liking, nobody's commenting. But I get a lot of people that talk to me about it, and I see the traffic that goes back to the website. So likes and comments and the engagement are not always the only measure about it. So I like Buffer because it does kind of give you, like, you can see the likes and the clicks, but you can also see, are they clicking back to your website? Are they doing other pieces? That is for your own networks. I don't have a good tool for what you're looking at. For like if you wanted to monitor a competitor, so to speak. Did that help at all?
Yes, that answered my question. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Let me go back to that. When I said a little bit, when I was talking about websites, and I said people are going to make a whole judgment on your business in a half a second based on design. I hear so many people that leverage nieces, nephews, neighbors' daughters, what have you. The one that killed me was when somebody said their 12-year-old niece was going to build them a website for them. And this goes under the umbrella, just because they technically can doesn't mean they should. And so what I've found, because especially when it comes to what I'm going to say, kids and social media, a lot of people think, well, they live on social media, they know how to do it. They know how to get around the platform, but that doesn't mean they know how to do it as a business, and that they're not sure what other consumers are looking like. So if you are selling to kids, if you're selling to teenagers, she could absolutely consult and help you, and she would probably be useful there. But if you're selling to adults, or you want to impress, kind of give that impression, I'll use caution. That's just a general, like, my PSA, if you will, on kids involved in business and helping on the technology side. But as to the question of if you should involve the page or start something new, that depends. If you have a significant amount of likes, let's say you already have 500 people liking and following the page, that's a good starter audience, and I would definitely consider doing that, and people are already interested. If it's something that you posted 3 years ago, maybe you only had 30 or 50 people like your page, I might start fresh, because whatever content you have on the older page, it might not be applicable to what you were doing with your partner then and what you may be doing on your own or with your daughter now. So that it has to go with measures and success. It's also sometimes, I know you've gone to a Facebook page and you've seen they haven't posted since 2017, or maybe last Christmas, and you think, gosh, is that business still really even legitimate? Are they still going because they haven't posted for so long? So if most of your content is several years old, that's a little bit of caution.